Hey, have you ever had a thought that sounds really snarky? Or maybe you've had a thought that makes you wonder, wait a second, am I the a-hole here? Or maybe you had a thought that felt really angry or just had like all this energy behind it and you didn't, it doesn't really match up with the way you project yourself in the world, the way you usually think your personality is. In NVC, we have this term for this part of ourself, and it's called the jackal. And the jackal part of us is asking us to pay attention to something that maybe we're not fully aware of yet, or we haven't given it the attention that it hopes to have. It's representing a need that is currently unmet, that we feel really passionate about, but we haven't found a way to express that passion in a way that is likely to be heard and understood by others around us. And so it comes out, kind of gritty, kind of snarky. It comes out with a whole lot of passion, and it's not always well received. However, the more we lean into understanding this part of ourselves that is maybe a little bit more judging or a little bit more harsh, the more we can understand what needs are alive in us and asking for our attention and what we want to value. In the episode that I'm sharing right now, I am once again exploring the first time that I went out into the world after having been tucked away due to having my disease and not being able to go out in the world, and then healing. And I was going out in the world. I was in a grocery store while on vacation with my two daughters. And while in the grocery store, I had just gotten back from a walk. While in the grocery store, I had experienced sexual harassment. And two grocery store employees, they kind of, I wouldn't say that they were purposefully blocking me into the aisle, but I felt that. I felt kind of trapped. I felt like I couldn't move. I didn't feel safe. And I was also really questioning myself, is this really happening? And even in the moment, my body was like, flight, get out of here. You don't feel safe, just leave. And my mind was trying to rationalize it. Did this really happen? Am I overreacting? Did I read into this situation? And even when I had returned to safety, when I had gotten back to my hotel room, I was still like really sort of in my own head and questioning myself. And so I reached out to my NVC support group, and Liz, Char, and Sonia all sort of worked together to help me understand what I was feeling and needing. And as I was trying to figure out what I was feeling and needing, they found themselves reacting really strongly, and their jackal's word had a lot to say. And I think one of the things that's so interesting about reflecting back on the scenario that unfolded was how protective the jackals are. And it's a great example of how, these parts of us that get angry, these parts of us that are maybe not so politically correct, these parts of us, they're showing us something that we feel really passionate about and that we want to value. And quite often they come from a protective place. And so paying attention to the messages that are behind these expressions that maybe don't sound so pretty, but paying attention to the messages behind them can be really empowering. So in this episode, you'll see us talking about how our jackals were coming out, the sense of protectiveness we felt. And as we're talking about sexual harassment and what we experience as women with sexual harassment, we also trickle into our children and what they might be observing in the world and what they might be experiencing in the world. And once again, we feel that protectiveness. How do we protect our kids as much as we can while still empowering them to live the lives that they want to lead and have the experiences that they want to experience? So we're kind of grappling with these topics in this episode. And I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you find some elements of NVC in there. Like I said, we're definitely talking about our jackals, and we're also talking a lot about feelings and needs. So I hope that you enjoy this video or recording. And there is a recording that comes before this related to feelings and needs, and there's also going to be one that comes after this, and that will be about the tree of life and how to make decisions once you feel really grounded. So without further ado, here is the recording. You're listening to me and Char and Sonia and Liz, and we're discussing our reactions, our jackal reactions to the sexual harassment that I experienced at the grocery store.
I was thinking about when you were mentioning coming to the three of us. Do you remember the Flintstones when he had those little like guys on his shoulder? That's like, oh, this and this and this. Or Inside Out with the people in your head. I was thinking that's like the three of us giving like all different interpretations of how it could feel, or are you feeling this, or is this the experience? And, you know, I was definitely like anger. Because when you first talked about it, I think I immediately felt very protective. And it was like, I think because I empathized and I've been in that position, maybe because I didn't speak up for myself or for whatever reason, maybe because you were in the hospital and I was feeling just overly protective, maybe because I'm a mama bear with people that are close to me, I don't know. But I did try to be NVC. I looked back at our conversation and asked permission. Would you like to hear my opinion? And you didn't respond. And then I waited, and then I was like, I'm going to give my opinion. Because my jackal was like, I couldn't contain him anymore. I was just feeling so protective and like, you know, these guys need to be told that that's not okay. That's not how I said it in our conversation. But much more appropriately, you know, people need to be told that's not appropriate behavior and that's not an okay thing to do. And so that's where I was coming from it, I think.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment and like highlight that often when folks are introduced to the concept of jackal, they often think it's like the bad feelings or the bad responses. But within NVC, like I don't know how that came to be seen as like a bad thing, because within NVC, the jackal is sort of like the part of yourself that wants to call attention to something that's really important to you. Like the jackal, like I'm trying to think, like if we were to use different imagery, like instead of saying my jackal, I might say like my megaphone. Like this is an unmet need that there's a part of me that really wants us to pay attention to. So I actually really appreciate, and at the time appreciated all the jackal responses, because it helped me. It helped me. It wasn't that I didn't have a jackal in that moment, but my jackal was like, all parts of me were confused. My jackal was confused. The only thing I knew was that I didn't feel safe, and I got myself safe, and that was all. But like our jackal points out the needs that we want to hold dear, the needs that we're not paying enough attention to. So when you were giving jackal responses, that felt really good too. Like your jackal cares so much about me. Like, oh, Char. Like it felt really nice. I mean, I might have heard your jackal and felt like, oh, okay, jackal, I hear you. I'm not going to do that strategy, but I hear you. So
depending on who and what the situation is, I feel like, yes, there's a mode that I kind of slip into, and Char, you said mama bear mode. And I really relate to that, because sometimes I find that I slip into that like mode of thinking and that protective thinking to the point where it like kind of overclouds anything else. It's like I just feel so, the need to protect, I think, just comes, it becomes such a strong need and sometimes overwhelming to the point where, like, if I can't do something to help meet that need, I don't know what to do or say. And it's like I just almost bow out because I don't know what to do or say other than rip someone's head off. You know what I mean? It's like that's where I get to, is it's like I just want to protect. And I think that was kind of, reading the conversation afterwards, those were the feelings that were coming up, was just like this overwhelming need to like want to protect. And so I'm grateful that there are so many, there are different points of view, like different feelings and different thought processes and different like reactions to the entire thing that I was able to read through, because I think that helped meet some of those needs. Actually reading some of your responses, Char, your Jackal was very aligned with mine. And so hearing that really kind of put those at ease, because yeah, it can be tricky, I think, sometimes when that need becomes so powerful. Sometimes I find it tricky to put that into words, if that makes sense, like support, if that makes sense.
And I think to me, with what everyone's saying tonight and just like Erin's situation, for me, this group is a place where you can process and label and prioritize your feelings. And I think like sometimes it's like these feelings are like floating all over the place. And like, I'm just wondering, maybe with Erin, like there were so many feelings going on, and having a group where there's like a language that expresses feelings and needs. I just wonder, like having other people in the group, you know, having other perspectives of feelings, and then some resonate or some don't, or opening different perspectives. It's like opens up to blind spots too, right? But then having that space to process, prioritize, and label feelings, I feel like it's like almost grabbing that feeling, bringing it in, and then grounding yourself, because it's just reaffirmed. And like, how often can you just sit with your feelings and accept that moment? Like in such a fast-paced society, it's like to just have a group where it honors that time and commitment to doing that. I don't know, that's probably one of the most grounding experiences you can have, in my opinion. And then having a group and a space, I just think that's just safety in itself.
I think the takeaway is that anybody watching this needs a group, a small group of people to just let it out. And I think that that's true. It's community, right? It's part of having community and like-minded friends and a support system. And that's what a lot of people lack. I mean, I think it's just lacking in our society as a whole. People have friends. Can you always just, you should be able to always just let it out with your friends. Sometimes you can't, or sometimes they don't share the language, right? That supports you, or that's what you need. An empathy group.
I think that's the part that I want to take what you said and mix it with what Sonia said. I loved the imagery that you used, Sonia, of like all these feelings swirling around, and it was like taking each one and like holding it with care, like allowing each one to like be seen and heard. So every feeling could like be held safely. And yeah, you use the word, like, I think you used the word reaffirming or reaffirmed. And that was my experience of like, oh, like it felt like I could exhale instead of carrying it all. I could like exhale. And Char, what you said, you know, I feel like I have lots of people in my life who care about me. But I picked you guys. I picked this group to share it with because I really wanted the language piece. Like I wanted to be able to process what happened in a way that the only words that are coming to mind are like nonviolent. Like I actually didn't want any further violence to come of it. Like I was already feeling pain from the violence that I had experienced. I really didn't want any further violence in that non-violent sense of the word. And so I wanted to be able to let it out, but I wanted to be able to let it out in a way that I wasn't going to be, that was empowering. I wanted to let it out in a way that felt empowering. And I think that was like, this group had the skill set for that. There's more there, but I don't think I can articulate it right now. So one of the things that you brought up, Char, or no, was it you, Sonia? I think it was you, Sonia, was this idea of how easy it is to sort of say it's the victim's fault. You shouldn't have worn that top. You were all sweaty, showing up in a tank top, all sweaty. You were asking for it. One of the hardest things about the whole situation, there's so many hard things. One of the things that stuck with me was as I was reacting with Steve, my middle daughter, who was the one who was directly behind me, that was the first thing she said to me. The first thing she said was, well, maybe if you didn't wear a tank top, it wouldn't have happened. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, I get it. And she is going through puberty and she is covering up. Like she's in that transition of not being something to look at to being something to look at. And she recognizes that you can help yourself not be something to look at. You can take up less space. And that was something that was another layer of it. It was recognizing that, like, in the moment, I knew my kids are here. And I thought, I don't know how much they're understanding. I don't know how much they heard. And then, they saw me reacting later on and saying stuff to Steve. And they're listening to me react. And my middle child, she's recognizing this is the stuff I need to pay attention to. And she said, I heard what they said and I didn't understand it. Like she didn't have enough of those experiences, thankfully. Or the point of view where she was positioned behind me couldn't see everything happening in terms of like where his eyes were going. But yeah, Liz, do you want to respond? I feel like I'm back in my own feelings. I'm reacting. I need a minute.
No, I think you brought up such an important piece that I know as a parent of girls, I really struggle with, because my oldest is going through, pre-puberty and all that stuff. And as a daughter of someone with a lot of trauma, whose trauma was passed on to me in a very protective, way. However, I was always taught to that. It was almost as if that victim blaming got passed down in the ways that I was taught how to carry myself in the world. Was, listen, you don't want bad things to happen to you. You don't do A, B, and C, and those things won't happen. So it's your choice, pretty much. Like, I mean, and like I said, it was a very protective, I think the only way that they really knew how to express those concerns. But I don't want to do that with my daughter, because I don't think it's right, because I don't think these experiences that you had, Erin, should be a reality, right? And I think the more that we allow those things to continue without being addressed, they remain realities, right? And so I'm in this really difficult spot that I've been finding lately, where it's balancing the taking that victim role and wanting to just rip it to shreds and say, like, you do you, wear whatever you want to wear, do whatever you want to do, because this is not how you are, and how you exist in the world should not be something that brings upon that type of response. Like, I want to be that person, and yet I have this pull in the back of my head that is very afraid of going there. And so I really struggle with that, because I feel like they are always watching and listening to everything I say and do, when I'm out there in the world, when I'm commenting on something that's happened, world events or whatever. Especially lately, with everything going on in the States, we've been having a lot of discussions about, just reproductive choices and all sorts of stuff like that. And yeah, it's a big underlining issue, because the question I come up against is how do I teach what I want to teach and what I feel is right, when I don't find that safety in being able to do that? Like, again, that word safety comes up, right? It's like, I have this need for safety, so that hinders me from doing and saying the types of things that I want to say, to the extent that I want to say them. And I'm concerned, as the years go on and she does enter puberty, and then the other one goes through things, I want to be equipped to say the things that I believe and follow through with those things. But there is this pull out of safety to do the opposite, or not the opposite, but just to cut that short.
Char, does your megaphone want to say something now, or do you want me to?
I think my megaphone has calmed a little bit. Good, because I think it really triggered me when you talked about your daughter. Saying that really triggered me, because I mean, as you guys know, like, mental health is like so huge for me, and positive body image. And I struggle with that with my kids, because they know as soon as mommy starts to talk about body image, they go, I don't want to hear it anymore. So I know we were in the future going to talk about like how we can discuss that, because I think that's really where it comes from. And Liz, with what you were saying, it's not even so much about what you're wearing or the attention you're drawing. It's, do you love your body? If you love your body and you want to wear that, go for it. It's the comments that, Erin, you got, or the violations, that the unwelcomeness piece, that I think ideally for me, I would teach them to stand up against and say, hey, yo, that's not appropriate, right? Or I don't like you saying that. I can wear whatever I want to wear, but you don't need to comment on it. There's a difference, I think. So, but that did trigger me, and I'm super curious about what you said to her, how you addressed that. because it's something that it seems like all of us we're all in that same daughter age group. And I know it's something that I'm struggling with, I'm trying to role model positivity, but I'm not the only role model in her life. And YouTube, what's up? A lot of YouTube happening. So there's just a lot of different factors that influence, of course. But I'm super curious, Erin, how you addressed her.
I don't even think it was me. I think it was Steve. Like, I think I just looked at him like with a new facial expression of feeling crushed. And I think he just said, like, I don't know. I'm going to paraphrase, but it was something to the effect of, Mama can wear whatever she wants. Everyone was in athletic wear. Like, she was not wearing anything that she should have been feeling uncomfortable with. But hear the should. Like, there is a disconnect. This is one thing that I wanted to point out. There's this ideal that we can wear whatever we want, or we can, but that's not true for me. It's really not true for me, because what I wear will elicit responses. And do I have the capacity to deal with those responses? I usually make clothing choices based on my capacity of how much I want to fit in, how much attention do I want, how much attention can I take on. This threw me off because I was in a space where everyone was in tank tops. Like, I thought that was like, that there would be no unexpected added attention based on what I was wearing, because other people were wearing that stuff too. So I thought that I was fitting in. I was not in a place of being able to express a boundary violation. And I knew that. I just didn't, I also didn't, like, it hadn't crossed my awareness that in this like wealthy vacation spot, like in my experience, it felt like wealthy people were there. This wealthy vacation spot, that this might happen. Like, I thought I was okay. I thought I was in the zone of not getting any extra attention. And had I known, if anybody, and how would I have known? But had I known, I probably would have covered up more, because I wasn't ready for that. Like, I feel like that's kind of a sad reality. I would love to be in a world, like, for example, is it Ontario only or all across Canada? Like, women are allowed to go topless. You don't have to wear a shirt. I have never seen a woman in Ontario topless, like maybe at the beach, but even then it's not like totally exposed.
And
Like,
my daughter, sorry to interrupt you, but my
Yeah.
daughter has asked me on numerous occasions, when she sees men jogging, for example, without shirts on, why she's never seen a woman without shirts on. And I've explained the same thing, that, well, technically you are allowed in Ontario. And she's like, well, why are we always told to be covered? And so I don't even know what to say to that. So yes, it's in Ontario, yes.
is it true for BC also, Sonia?
I don't know.
Oh,
It's never been a conversation that I've been in.
okay. It was made a big deal, I don't know, within the past decade. Like, they made it officially a law that women are allowed, like, I think it was sort of like steps towards like gender equality, that kind of thing. So women are allowed to go topless in all the places that men can go topless. And I've never seen a woman do that, because like our values, our ideals, I don't think are matched up with like the cultural way of doing things. And so while it sounds great, like, wear what you want, my reality is that I will not necessarily be wearing what I want. I will be wearing what I like. Is it what I want? I'm wearing what I think I can handle. Like if I want to really blend in, I'm making choices about really blending in. I haven't wanted to stand out in a long time, so I can't remember what that was like. But I know in my earlier days, I'm sure that I had some of that stuff too.
I mean, I think you're exactly right. It has to be, you know, if I were to teach my daughter, wear what you want, and then there's the, but, you know, if you're going to wear this, you can expect to be looked at or whatever. Now, if you're prepared for that, like you said, if you're in the space where you can set your boundaries and say, I'm not comfortable with that, don't speak to me that way, that's not what I want to hear, cool. If you're not feeling, you know, it's going to be a whole conversation because breasts are sexualized, right? It's just a fact. So it's just kind of one of those things about boobs anyway. And then there's butts and all the other funny words that we don't need to list. But even tummies, the short shirts are super in style. Super in style. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's like, you know what? Maybe if we make it a little more normalized, it's like we move up a little bit every year just to normalize it. So it's not like shocking or anything nobody's seen before. Everybody just show a little more skin bit by bit, and we'll just totally normalize it by the time our great grandkids or something. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this, but I hear you. I think I was just wanted to hear you when you said you have to be in the right like frame of mind to wear certain things.
I just wanted to add to that because my husband's, I don't know if we're getting names here, my husband's side of the family is very traditional, and his sister took my daughter for shopping today, and she left with this shirt, right? And these pants, which are, you know, anyways, and she goes, my sister-in-law goes, I'm worried what her dad will think. Not me. I'm worried what her dad will think. And then I'm saying, oh, we're unconventional, so it doesn't matter to us. Like, and she's right there, right? My daughter. I'm like, I said, like, it's the style right now. So basically what I'm saying is because it's socially acceptable right now, it's okay. So I just think it's funny we're talking about wardrobe right now when this situation just happened today. Secretly, I'm also like, give myself a pat on the back, being like, wear whatever you want. But at the same time, I'm also like, but I also know it's socially acceptable right now. But yeah, those parts were interesting. And then just being like, what is her dad gonna think? And it was like, why does it matter what he thinks and not what I think?
Yeah. That socially acceptable part, that was one thing I was thinking about too, because like generations of women before us, what you wore did indicate what was going to happen to you. Like that was socially acceptable. If you were going to show up looking like this, you could expect to be grabbed. If you were going to show up looking like this, you could expect to be kissed whether you wanted to or not. And, you know, culturally, things are changing. And now you can expect to be able to be in a space and not be grabbed or not be kissed. But we're not in a space where you can expect to not have someone say something yet. You know, it's 2022 in Canada. This is one thing that Steve said, you know, in 2022 in Canada, he would expect that that kind of thing wouldn't happen. He wanted these guys to be shamed. Like his Jackal was also protective. He's like, no, that's ridiculous. And so like we want this. We might say, yeah, that's logically what makes sense to us. And yet I don't think we're quite there. And I know me as a woman, I recognize we're not quite there. This was a reminder that we're not quite there. And every time, like, I can't even wear that tank top again. Like, that sucks. I liked that tank top. And now every time I go to put it on, all I can think about is, are there other people who are going to respond that way? That sucks. And anyway, the other piece that you just said, Sonia, how is her dad going to react? That one's so interesting to me also, because it sort of goes along with like he's the ultimate protector here and you're making his job more difficult, or, like that's what it reminds me of. And, that's also something that is tricky because, yes, as parents, I think we do want to protect our kids. And yet we also want to empower them and allow them to have body autonomy and expression with their bodies. So yeah, there's just lots of interesting pieces there, right? And like, I'm just thinking about your sister-in-law, and I'm trying to take, the jackal years in, jackal years out, giraffe years in, giraffe years out. I'm just trying to think, like, from her point of view, I'm guessing, she was really thinking about that protective piece. And I kind of like the way you said that, Sonia, like, this is what's socially acceptable. Like, if I want to live in a world where it's okay to wear what you want to wear, we kind of do need everyone to be like, no, I'm okay wearing this, and to go out and wear it.
And I was reminded just kind of like how many times I've heard you will say to like the girl's dad, oh, you've got, some trouble coming, or whatever, that like, oh, just you wait, or that type of thing. And it's like, I'm standing right there and I'm like, wait, you mean just you wait? Like, what are you talking? But it's always like addressed to him as like, oh, you've got your hands full, like as if like, okay.
So you can really see that we were grappling with this need for protection, this wish to have values expressed in the world, having our values represented and what we want to see in the world, and this need for empowerment. I wanted to turn this sexual harassment experience into something that I felt at peace with, and trying to figure out what to do. It was really helpful to have our jackals show up and give some guidance. Do you want to value this? Would you like to pay some more attention to this? All of those parts are valuable and important. What was it that we wanted to value most? What was it that I wanted to value most as the person who experienced the sexual harassment? You can also see that we dip into our role as parents also. We do need to protect our kids, and how do we balance this wish for body autonomy and hoping that our kids feel empowered to make choices that represent them and still be protected? So we're playing with some of those concepts, and we don't come up with any answers. That is a whole other conversation, but we play with some of those ideas. I hope that you found the recording to be enjoyable. There is a third and final recording that goes along with this, and that recording is related to how do you choose a strategy moving forward? How do you make a choice and take action? And once you've had a chance to really figure out what you're feeling and needing, decide what you want to value, once you feel really grounded in that, the choice can feel easy. The strategy you want to take can feel obvious. So that is the third recording, and I invite you to check that out if you liked this one. I would also invite you to share this with a friend if you think a friend might enjoy listening to our conversation. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.